Homestead Studios in Santa Clarita, California, it's just the Tip-Sters with Melissa Morgan.
Greetings.
If you got a tip from Melissa, a little-known fact that could break open a cold case, the one piece of the puzzle that solves a mystery, why Santa isn't covered in reindeer poop at the end of the night. I mean, think about it. Anything. Tell us about it by calling the Tip-Ster hotline at 832-TIP-STER. That's 832-847-7837, or send an email to jttipsters@gmail.com. You just might hear your tip on the podcast. And now here's your host. Jack Frost is nipping at her nose, and she's dialing 911. Melissa Morgan.
More cowbell. Well, that's completely erroneous. Producer Mark, I'm sure you know that if Jack Frost were indeed nipping at my nose, I wouldn't call 911. I would call the Los Angeles Times because I'd be so excited.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there'd be no reporting of this to authorities.
Ah.
I like the cold and do not like the hot.
Right, of course. No, I know that.
So, yeah, Jack Frost would be like...
You can nip at your nose anytime?
My child. Yeah.
Right.
If I could give birth to a child, it would be Jack Frost. I would be so thrilled. It wouldn't matter how cold my nether regions were, and I would never report him to the police. I mean, if he did something wrong, I would encourage him to turn himself in. But I would never report my child, Jack Frost, to the authorities.
That's very, very enlightened of you, I must say.
Well, thank you.
Yeah,
I'm not sure what that means, but okay.
Well, just you're treating him with respect. Hey, listen, do the right thing. Turn yourself in.
Yeah. I would never turn my child, Jack Frost, in. Even if he, like, let's say he grabbed someone with his icy hands and they died. I mean,
oh dear,
that would be, that would be
bad.
No, it would be like, accidental. He wouldn't mean to kill them. That's not ever in his DNA because he's my child.
I gotcha.
It's really difficult to discuss an imaginary child that is a fake engineered character.
Right.
As if it's your own kid.
But you're doing all right.
I'm beginning to worry about myself.
Yeah.
Right now.
It is really nice and cold outside now, right at this particular moment. I mean, not like it is where you grew up, but it's in the 50s during the day.
No, it's not. It's like in the 60s or 70s, and it's sunny. It's cold at night when the sun goes down.
Which is also very nice.
It's really nice, but it's not cold.
Come on, we have the comforter on the bed now.
Yeah, that's only because I drug it out of the garage and threw it on the bed. Not that, it's almost not really even needed. We have the comforter on, and yet someone leaves the windows open.
Yes.
So you're Jack Frost. You really are Jack Frost. Thank God we didn't have a child. It probably would have just been an ice baby.
It's
what the fuck are you drinking in there?
Coffee.
I see. To warm
outside.
Your cold soul.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
So I wanted December to be different than the previous months when we started this ridiculous excuse for a dog and pony show in January of 2018. I had an idea of how I wanted it to go, and it has morphed and changed into something I wasn't even expecting. And I have come to terms with my prejudice against open cases. I am horribly prejudiced against cases that aren't solved because they bring me much grief and sorrow when cases are not solved. And yet there are more of those than there is anything else in the world. I'm just happier, more content when a case is tied up with a little bow. But that doesn't always happen. So December is going to be about missing cases. There's only a few weeks in December that we're going to be producing a podcast. A couple of weeks at the end of the year, we're going to take off because we've been doing it at least one podcast a week for the entire year, and sometimes two if we did a murder tizer, a smaller episode, an appetizer of murder. And we never know when they're missing. We can always hold out hope that, do you hear panting? That isn't.
Oh yeah, that's not me.
No, that's not Mark. That's our crazy pony boy Humphreys.
I forgot to forward the phone call. So if the phone rings, you might hear that too.
Oh, good. So the phone's ringing. The dog's panting.
Right.
And I haven't addressed the reindeer shit. So I was going to say maybe Pony Boy will come in here and take a dump in the podcast room while he's panting.
No, let's hope not.
Yeah, let's hope not. So I will go back to your assessment of why Santa Claus is not covered in shit, but which he might actually like that. I think there's websites for that dedicated to shit covered Santa.
So Santa Claus is German.
He is very much into
Klaus is kind of a German sounding.
Santa Claus, and he is definitely into the shite videos. So yes, missing. We don't know that they are not alive. You can't prove a negative. So a lot of times we just want to proceed on the fact that maybe they are alive. Something has happened to them. Maybe they are someplace else. Maybe they wanted to be someplace else. But the reason I started this podcast was there is a gentleman in my area who's been missing since January 26th of 2017. So it's coming up on his 2-year anniversary of being missing. He has missed his 60th birthday, his 59th birthday. He has missed Christmas and 2 Thanksgivings. And we want to try and bring him home. But we're going to be covering a different case. I covered him earlier this year.
Episode 4.
Episode 4. Thank you, producer Mark. So we'll be covering a different case from Oklahoma, actually. But all of December is going to be covering a case where someone is missing. And hopefully we can shed some light on a case and maybe get some people talking about that. So that's December, and I'm letting the Tip-Sters know what December is going to be like in the next couple of weeks with these episodes. So going back to Santa being covered in shit, I'm from Kentucky, and yet I'm not, like a well-versed horsewoman, equestrian person. I know, like, they lift their tails and shit where they want. Basically, that's from just the little bit of horse interaction I had as a child. And just recently, I had a unicorn photo shoot with the most wonderful, I guess he's an albino, beautiful white horse with blue eyes named Weto, which I believe in Spanish is white boy. So beautiful Weto with a little unicorn horn tied on him, beautiful flowers around it, sweetest boy. And I was worried during the photo shoot if he's a big boy, it's a little bit scary. Horses are very powerful animals. I was worried that did they take this poor beautiful horse and like make him work all day like he's in the circus or some bullshit? No. He was treated better than most humans I know. He had 2 trainers on site, along with the 2 photographers. They had green hay for him, tons of water, buckets of water. He would just stand and piss and shit wherever he wanted, which is, that's not like a bad life. And, they would take pictures of all of these clients that were lined up, and then you'd be like, oh, Weto needs a break. So they would just take him off into a little field, and he would have his green grass, and he would have a bucket of water. And
he'd pee and shit.
He'd pee and shit wherever he wanted.
You don't let me do that.
I don't. You know why? Because I'm tired of cleaning up the dog shit. If I have to clean up yours, I'm out. I'll take myself out.
Makes sense.
Thank you. Let's not even talk about how you might occasionally miss the toilet bowl when urinating. I'm not going to even go there, but I guess I just did go there. Really a big fan of Windex wipes. I'm just going to say that right off the bat.
I think every wife in America is.
Why do we always have to end up discussing your peeing habits?
All the males out there in the audience, can I get a woot woot?
Yeah, I don't really want to talk about your peeing anymore.
Let's talk about Weto some more. He was a very good boy.
He was a beautiful boy, and I was impressed with how they treated him, because I was before we got there, I was very trepidatious. I was like, I don't know that I want to be involved in this. Is it animal cruelty to have him, be wearing a unicorn horn tied around his little head? But that's not animal cruelty. He seemed to enjoy it. So I'm going to guess reindeers are sort of in that family. And you might be right, producer Mark. I think their tails kind of go up. I wonder if they're like deer. and their little tails pop up.
Yeah, I think they do.
Yeah. So it makes a lot of sense, unless when Santa Claus is delivering presents on like a flat roof and he stops.
Right, that's fine. That maybe he's got him trained.
shit.
But if you're flying through the air, man.
Right, and you got to go and you're an animal and you just shit. You know what? Maybe there's like a shield that protects
A reindeer shield.
Yeah, like a plexiglass shield in front of Santa Claus's sleigh, so the shit flies off to the side. So there's a lot of space shit out there, or it falls like, to the ground like those blue ice blocks from airplanes that end up in a field.
Oh,
where they
I see.
release
Right.
the blocks of shit when we're taking a dump on a United flight or something across the flyover states.
Oh no, Doris, that's not an airplane. That's not an airplane toilet. That's Santa's flying overhead.
Yeah, that's Donner's sizable, turds.
Frozen solid.
Now that could be true. Do you think Santa Claus flies high enough so that the shit freezes?
Oh, he has to get around so fast. Oh my God, he's got to be flying up above the stratosphere.
Oh, okay. You've thought more about this than I have. I'm willing to let it go. Really?
All right, I will too.
Okay. So, speaking of letting things go, some of the tipsters might know I am a horrible podcast snob, which makes all the sense in the world. That's why you end up hosting your own, is because you listen to some dreck and you're like, oh, fuck, I can do better than that and I can do nothing. So I am very particular and picky. There are podcast people who listen to this podcast and hundreds of others, and I'm like, how do you waste your life listening to that shit? Because I'm just horribly picky. So imagine my surprise when I found a podcast that keeps me riveted, and it is most frequently on topics that I know nothing about, I have no experience about, and yet am riveted. I feel like it. Producer Mark has tried to drum this into my head the entire year we've been doing this, that it's really kind of all about the host. You can like the topic, you can like the subject matter, but if you don't like the host, it becomes almost, impossible.
Unlistenable.
Yeah, impossible to listen to. So the fact that I love these hosts, I adore both of them, and if I were into chicks and were not married to Producer Mark, I would have asked for both of their hands in marriage. And big fan of their podcast, and it's fascinating. They're two women, two mothers, and they split their podcast sort of in half. The first half is typically, in their own words, they talk about poop a lot. So Producer Mark, I think, really enjoys the podcast too. I've got him now listening to it, and he listens and likes it.
Yeah, I really
too.
like the parts about. No, I don't.
Yes, you do. You like the poop part. So they're moms, so they discuss poop and of children of different ages. And then the second half of the podcast is about true crime. And it isn't always about a murder. Some fascinating cases of, assaults. It sounds really weird to say a fascinating case on assault and rape, but they really cover the cases in a way that is untraditional. They cover them with details that pique your interest. I feel like I am talking more about this podcast than anything else, and I need to why don't we just let them explain it themselves?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Here's a promo for Big Feelings out of Spokane, Washington. You should hear them.
I'm Ginger. And I'm Lo. And we make a podcast called Big Feelings.
It's the podcast for weirdos with kids.
Join us as we chat about the joys and pitfalls of parenting.
And after about a half an hour of that, I make Ginger listen to horrifying stories of true crime, the paranormal, and high strangeness.
Because honestly, guys, parenting can be lonely.
So come hang out with us.
So you can find Big Feelings anywhere that you get your podcasts, at iTunes or Spotify. They're really stellar women, brilliant, funny, unique outlooks, and they are the hosts that make the topics that I hadn't really thought of fascinating to me. Discussing their children's behavior. Ginger was an elementary school teacher, discussing some behaviors that are very early on in a child's life that may give you a hint that they could grow up to be someone that you covered later on in your life in a true crime podcast.
Yeah, that part was neato.
They're really a spectacular duo. And if you have, some time, please check out Big Feelings, because I think you'll enjoy it as much as I do, which it's a really stellar podcast. So this week's episode is dedicated to a woman who's been missing since May 27th of 2012. And the statistics on missing people is overwhelming to me. I guess I like to bury my head in the sand because we live, in a bedroom community of a pretty big city of Los Angeles. And, there aren't that many missing people. And when people go missing, it's typically solved in a short amount of time. It may be days, maybe weeks, maybe even months. I don't know that anyone's been missing from the area that it's been years, but that could happen too. There are, a myriad of reasons why people go missing. Several people that have gone missing near our community didn't even live here. We are, close to a very major freeway that not where we live is not that close, but close enough. And in the vicinity, people have pulled off the freeway, gone exploring, found months or a year later dead. Not at anyone else's hand, perhaps, dehydration or just passing out. Several of the people had, struggled mightily with mental illness, had been on a different path, had meds that were helping, had meds that did not help, that changed, had meds that they didn't take, were not diagnosed, but potentially had mental health issues. So a lot of the people that have been either found near here or have gone missing from here had really solid, understandable reasons why they went missing. It's the ones that seemingly evaporate into air that are the ones that are so upsetting, a level of frustration that is unimaginable to me, because I become overwhelmed when I lose my sunglasses or my keys. So a human that you love, that is your life, that is in your life, that is part of your life, that is your life, going missing is unimaginable to me, which is just one of the reasons why I started this podcast, because Linda Sarazan and Will Sarazan's family, his sister Andrea, are living my nightmare. Going through that is a nightmare. So I found this statistic overwhelming, but up to 600,000 people go missing in the United States every year.
That many?
Every year.
Over 500,000 people?
600,000 individuals. Now, some of them, a large portion of them, children and adults, can be found quickly, alive and well. But of that 600,000 people that are reported missing, tens of thousands of them remain missing for a year or more. And let's be honest, most law enforcement agencies consider a year a cold case. It just becomes, it's not what they want to do. It's not what anyone wants to hear. But if you're missing for more than a year, and maybe even less than that, a law enforcement agency is going to consider it a cold case.
And that means they kind of put it on hold, right?
They don't even want to put it on hold, but when there are no other leads, no more information coming in to follow up on, it can really only be called a cold case. So, yeah. So 4,400 unidentified bodies are recovered in the United States every year.
Whoa.
4,400 bodies with no identification are found each year, and 1,000 of those still remain unidentified after a year.
My God. The more that I hear these statistics, the more I'm just thinking, what goes on out there?
Yeah, it's it can be, I choose not to believe that it's an awful, scary place, that our world is not an awful, scary place. I really do. But having such a fascination with true crime that I have for most of my life since I've been, able to read and watch television, it coming from a very small town in Kentucky, moving to one of the bigger towns, which I've lived in Los Angeles, in the Los Angeles area now, as long as I lived in Kentucky. So it's, I've lived in both places now for an equal amount of time. Granted, when you move to a larger city as an adult, you have different tools and skills. When you're growing up in a small town in Kentucky, you think everyone is good and kind, no matter what your parents say, like, don't talk to strangers, don't get into anyone's car. I never did that. I never had a problem with that. I do remember thinking a few times as I got a little bit older, my teen years, perhaps, trusting some boys that maybe didn't need to be trusted. And I'm wondering how I didn't end up a statistic. But I really was, I don't think I was ever, I may have had a few dicey interactions, but I never was in any sort of real danger. Maybe because I just look like I'm a big girl who could, I'll fucking take you down. Or maybe just my smart ass mouth. If someone, had wanted to think they could put one over on me, we're like, oh no, that bitch ain't worth my time and trouble. No. So, I
think it's mostly because you're smart. I think you're smart.
I'm horribly naive.
Yeah, well, you're maybe naive, but you've got good instincts.
Well, I appreciate you saying that, Producer Mark. It's very hard to be objective about yourself. At least it is for me. So I never really dated anyone I thought was that dicey, but I, may have had interactions with a few people. When I look back now, I'm like, how the fuck did I get out of that one? And it could have been my mouth, could have been my size. It could have just been, it was not my time to go. I don't know. But I'm shocked and stunned at the number of people that go missing, the number of people that are found, not in the way you want them to be found, and the number of people that are found and never identified. And I know we have so many more tools now to identify people. I hate to say go out and get a tattoo, because it doesn't necessarily mean they're going to find you. There are, without becoming too gruesome, there are ways to rehydrate skin if you're perhaps found in the way no one wants you to be found. But there are ways that they can identify you. The ink is permanent. And I always remind Mark, if anything happens to me, please remember my tattoos, because that may be one way to find me. And I don't
know if that's the way we want people to identify you, darling.
I know, because some of them are not they're not bad or anything. There's just, yeah. So
let's leave it right there.
And we'll leave it right there. So I have three tattoos, and they're definitely unique. They're not, it's not like I have a rose on my tit or a butterfly on my shoulder, which, by the way, the person in the case today did have a butterfly on her shoulder, and a few other tattoos, which we'll discuss. So knowing that 600,000 people go missing in the United States each year, somehow Shannon Baldwin Hokanson's case shouldn't seem that unusual, and yet it has stuck with me. I've known about her case for a while. I've known some people who have tried to find her in many ways, using many things to try and find her, and she's still among the missing. And we have a little news clip from 3 years after she went missing. A local Oklahoma, she's in Enid, Oklahoma, a local Oklahoma news crew covered her case. So if you could hit that, Producer Mark.
An Oklahoma woman vanishes. Her children left to wonder for years what happened to Mom. But they aren't the only ones. The case has police in Enid stumped. Tonight, the unsolved case of Shannon Baldwin. Here's News Channel 4's Shelley Mills.
I feel like she's out there somewhere. We just haven't found her yet.
It's been almost 3 years years since Shannon Baldwin Hokanson disappeared. This mother of three was just 29 years old when she was last seen in the spring of 2012.
Everything stopped at the end of May, so we hadn't gotten anything, and we couldn't get her to respond to us.
Ronnie Kitchen is the one who reported Shannon missing. She's a close family friend and knew something was wrong when Shannon stopped responding to her calls and texts.
I tried for several months.
It was August that year she went to police. Detective Sean Ramsey has had the case ever since.
It's something I think about every day, and every day when I'm at work, I work on it.
The question, where is Shannon, haunts this detective, this department.
I'm very hopeful that somebody will call me one day or come into the station one day and say that they know where she's at.
There have been very few leads in the case, but there were two which brought high hopes of answers. One led investigators here, rural Garfield County. They spent days searching this property near Bison, Oklahoma, after receiving a tip Shannon's body had been left in a cellar. After sifting through the brush and debris of the dilapidated home, investigators walked away with no answers. Another tip led them about a mile south to this well, also in Bison. The rural setting, miles away from any town, led once again to a dead end.
It takes its toll on you not knowing where to find her at, or if she's alive or if she's dead.
You have to have hope.
Ronnie is raising one of Shannon's sons. She has worked tirelessly putting up posters and missing persons websites in hopes of tracking Shannon down.
It doesn't matter what happened to her now. We just want to make sure we bring her home.
While Detective Ramsey believes Shannon is a victim of foul play, he too is hoping someone will come forward with information to help close this case.
The children deserve to know that their mother's at least been found.
Shelley Mills, News Channel 4.
Thanks, Shelley. Shannon's other two children live with their dad. Police say Shannon did have a history of drug use, which may have played a role in her disappearance.
So we included the part at the end where the news anchor says Shannon had a history of drug use. And I don't even know that piece of information matters. I after speaking with Laura Frizzo, chief of police of the Upper Peninsula city, Iron City, who doesn't have a history? If you dig through, her example was that the Kentucky State Police, good Melissa, the Michigan State Police had said, Chris Reagan walked away from his life. He committed suicide. He had debt. What? He didn't have that much debt. He wasn't in debt to, gangsters. He wasn't a gambler or, so Shannon having a history of drug use, I almost feel like it's like Shannon had brown hair, which, by the way, she did. Really beautiful brown hair. Long brown hair that is almost auburn. Beautiful color. Beautiful brown eyes. The biggest smile, and her eyes crinkle when she smiles. She's a beautiful girl. She was 29 when she went missing. She had 3 children. Everyone who knew her loved her. I don't care what drugs she did. I don't care if it was aspirin or whatever else. It just feels like something you add on to a story in your mind if you're in the news to give it more intrigue. I don't know that any sort of drug use had anything to do with her disappearance. That's why it bothers me the way that was worded. She, to everyone who knew her, was just the sweetest, kindest girl who would give you the shirt off her back. And the female who was speaking in that news clip is her very, very dear friend, Ronnie Kitchen. And Ronnie is raising her oldest son, and her 2 younger children are with their father. And if that doesn't tell you what sort of a friend Ronnie is and how beloved Shannon was, I don't know what could explain that. How many people have friends who, if something happened to us and we had, children or responsibilities, would step in for a lifelong responsibility? I sometimes worry about older people who have pets and wondering if they pass, who will take care of their animals. I can't even imagine worrying about a young person with children and what happens when they disappear. Sadly, a lot of cases you hear the children are split up, go to different foster homes or even different family members. And while Shannon's children are sort of split, at least the two younger children are with their father, and an amazing friend like Ronnie Kitchen steps up and helps raise your oldest son if you're not around. So Shannon was in touch with friends and family at least once a week. And Ronnie is the person who, after a long time of not being able to get a hold of Shannon, leaving many messages and many texts, finally reported her missing. She couldn't get straight answers from any other friends or family. So even though Shannon's last known communication with Ronnie, and that's the last person we can figure out that she spoke to, was May 27th of 2012, she was not reported missing until August of 2012. Now, you can say, what sort of person is not reported until months after they're missing? Well, like I said, Ronnie is a family friend, and she was trying everything she could to find Shannon, and finally was like, I can't do this by myself, and no one will give me an answer. So I'm going to the police. And she did.
Well, thank God she did. What happened? Where were the kids in all this during those many months where they were looking for her?
Now, those are great questions. I have reached out to Ronnie, and I have reached out to Detective Ramsey, who I don't even know if he is still in charge of her case, but I have reached out. I haven't heard back from Detective Ramsey, but Ronnie has been kind enough to respond to me and answer to me when I know she has been under the weather and really feels fed up with the frustration of this case. So Ronnie had tried every avenue she knew. Where are the kids? Where is Shannon? Where are all these friends and family who, know her, love her, and worry about her? And she basically took up the mantle on her own. Again, I don't know where everyone was. Like I said, the two younger children are with their father, and her oldest son is being raised by Ronnie, who stepped up and, in her own words, I tried to do my own investigating for the first couple of years, and it was just a mass confusion of information that went in circles, and I just had to step back and concentrate on raising her oldest child.
Oh, wow.
So everyone needs a friend like Ronnie Kitchen. And in the news clip, even though it's just audio, in the video portion of the news clip from KFOR in Oklahoma, you can see a huge binder that Ronnie has brought with her to meet with the reporter who is covering the story. A huge binder that she is responsible for putting out missing flyers. She is responsible for the missing page on Facebook. She has other admins who help with the page, but Ronnie is sort of the go-to connection. Ronnie is the friend we all wish we could have if anything happened to us, and especially if we didn't have other friends or family members that knew where to go, what to do. I mean, she has been, you can't say enough about her, what she's done raising her son and trying to keep the story in the forefront. And the reason that this one has stuck with me is that, like I said, again, I know a few people who have tried to work on it from behind the scenes, and today would be Shannon's 36th birthday. And I wanted to cover her case because in the news clip, Ronnie says it beautifully. We don't even care what's happened anymore. We just need to bring her home. Her children need to know where she is. They've given up thinking that they may find her alive. And after 6.5 years now, you don't want to give up. But what else can you do? Perhaps she was hit in the head and she has amnesia and she's living somewhere and she doesn't know her name is Shannon. Chances of that happening are pretty slim. So I think that they're just at this point, well, hi, Pony. They're just going on the odds that she was a victim of foul play, and they don't know how, when they'll find her. They just want to find her. So she is listed in any place you can list a person who is missing, and they've done an amazing job. She's on NamUs. She has her NamUs number, which we can put in the show notes. She is on an Oklahoma missing page. I can give you her case number. We can put that in the show notes. She is on Q, a Center for Missing Persons. She has social media pages dedicated to her. And she has these fantastic friends who are still keeping an eye out for her, hoping to find her. I can tell you that 2 men were associated with her, were seen with her. One of them had her car after she was missing, and he has since passed away. So of the 2 men who refused to speak to police and tell them anything, one of them is gone, and he was the one who had custody of her car without her, and the other one I don't know. A source came forward to the Enid, Oklahoma police and said that one of these 2 men, the one that's passed away, had told her that they had dumped Shannon on the other side of the Texas border in a body of water. There's no proof of that. Again, she was, an unnamed source. I mean, unnamed by me. You can probably find her name. I don't know how credible she is. That's why I'm not listing her as a source, because I don't know her credibility. I know that not that long ago, a couple years after she was missing, TIPS led the police, like was mentioned in the news clip, to 2 different properties in Garfield County, Oklahoma. One is in Bison. The other one's actually in Bison also, but a mile away from the original place where it was reported Shannon's body was dumped in a basement of a dilapidated house. And I mean, it's not I don't know how, you couldn't even call it a house anymore. It's very much like the wolf that blew down the pig's straw house. It's a crumbling mess of board and siding. You wouldn't know it was a house. You weren't sure what kind of a structure it was. But so that was searched, and about a mile away from there on a larger property without a structure was searched in a well. It was said that she was put in a well. So those tips did not, prove anything. Nothing came out of those. I know several sets of remains have been found in the last year. Those were also ruled out as Shannon. And, when you get to this point, it's been 6.5 years, and she would have been 36 today, a 36-year-old mother of 3. And she's not here. No one can say to her, happy birthday. You can say it into the ethers and hope she hears you, but you can't say it to her. And those are the things that are going to keep me up at night and keep many people up at night. So there are many places you can go if you happen to have any information on Shannon Baldwin Hokanson. You can call the Enid Police Department, 580-242-7000. Detective Sean Ramsey, if he is still in charge of her case, but someone there will be able to help you. There are lots of places you can go. You can even call us at 832-847-7837, 832 Tip-STER. Shannon is now 36. She was 29 when she went missing. She's around 5'2", 130 to 150 pounds. Beautiful brown hair, beautiful brown eyes, a tattoo of a frog and a mushroom on the outside of her ankle, blue roses on her lower back, a butterfly on the back of her right shoulder, and a heart between her thumb and index finger. And today is the beautiful Shannon Baldwin Hokanson's birthday. Happy birthday, Shannon, wherever you are. Please know we're still thinking of you. We're still looking for you. And more cowbell.
Remember, if you've got a tip, give us a call at 832-TIP-STER. That's 832-847-7837. Or send an email to jttipsters@gmail.com. And don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. We'll see you next time.